King Henry VIII's break from the Catholic Church and the formation of the Church of England was a complex, transformative event in English history that was driven by a mixture of personal, political, and religious motivations. Here is an in-depth look at how and why this dramatic split occurred. King Henry VIII ascended to the English throne in 1509 after the death of his father, King Henry VII. Unlike his father, who was known for being pragmatic and fiscally conservative, Henry VIII was passionate, charismatic, and eager to make his mark on the English throne. He was also a devout Catholic, and, as a young king, had even been given the title Defender of the Faith by Pope Leo V in recognition of his writings against Martin Luther's Protestant Reformation. Henry married Catherine of Aragon, the Spanish princess and widow of his older brother, Prince Arthur. To marry her, he had to receive a special papal dispensation, as marrying a brother's widow was prohibited by the Catholic Church. Catherine was highly respected, and their marriage was initially strong. However, as years passed, one critical issue began to overshadow their union. Catherine failed to produce a male heir. By the 1520s, Henry VIII was deeply concerned about the succession of the English throne. Catherine had borne him several children, but only one survived infancy, a daughter, Princess Mary. In an era when the legitimacy and stability of the monarchy were tied closely to a male heir, Henry feared that without a son, his dynasty would be vulnerable. He also believed that God was punishing him for marrying his brother's widow, interpreting the lack of a male heir as divine disapproval. By 1525, Henry's anxiety over securing a male heir grew so intense that he became convinced he needed to annul his marriage to Catherine. At the same time, he had fallen deeply in love with Anne Boleyn, a young noblewoman and lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine. Unlike most mistresses, Anne refused to consummate their relationship until she was married, further fueling Henry's determination to end his marriage. The Pope's refusal and the annulment struggle. In 1527, Henry formally requested an annulment from Pope Clement VII, arguing that his marriage to Catherine was invalid because she had been his brother's wife. He cited a passage from the book of Leviticus: "If a man shall take his brother's wife, it is an unclean thing. They shall be childless." However, Catherine insisted that her marriage to Prince Arthur had never been consummated, meaning her marriage to Henry was valid. This issue placed Pope Clement VII in a difficult position. On one hand, he didn't want to anger Henry, but on the other, he faced pressure from Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor and Catherine's nephew. Charles was one of the most powerful rulers in Europe and had sacked Rome in 1527, effectively holding the Pope captive. Fearing retaliation from Charles, Pope Clement delayed his decision for years, hoping the situation would resolve itself. The growing frustration, Henry's break with Rome. As the Pope stalled, Henry grew increasingly frustrated and began to explore other options. With the advice of Thomas Cranmer and Thomas Cromwell, two key advisors who were sympathetic to the growing Protestant Reformation, Henry started to contemplate a separation from the Catholic Church. In 1532, he appointed Thomas Cranmer as Archbishop of Canterbury, positioning him to play a crucial role in Henry's plan. The following year, Anne Boleyn became pregnant, increasing Henry's urgency to secure an annulment. Since the Pope would not grant it, Henry decided to bypass the Pope's authority entirely. In 1533, Cranmer annulled Henry's marriage to Catherine of Aragon, declaring it invalid. Henry then married Anne, who soon gave birth to Elizabeth, a daughter. Henry's actions were met with severe consequences from the Catholic Church, which excommunicated him. In response, he took even more drastic steps to solidify his control over the English Church. In 1534, Henry pushed through the English Parliament the Act of Supremacy, which declared that the king was the only supreme head on earth of the Church of England. This effectively removed the Pope's authority over the English Church and established Henry as its leader. The Act of Supremacy marked the formal beginning of the Anglican Church, or Church of England. While it was initially very similar to Catholicism in terms of doctrine, its primary difference was that it recognized Henry, rather than the Pope, as the supreme spiritual leader. The formation of the Church of England was followed by a series of acts that reinforced Henry's control. 1536 to 1541, Henry ordered the dissolution of Catholic monasteries in England, seizing their lands and wealth to strengthen the crown. This led to the redistribution of wealth and land from the Catholic Church to the English nobility and gentry, creating lasting social and economic impacts. The establishment of the Anglican Church had profound effects on England. While initially driven by Henry's personal need for a male heir, the English Reformation opened the door to significant religious changes in the years to come. After Henry's death in 1547, his son, Edward VI, embraced Protestant reforms, moving the Church of England further away from Catholicism. Under Edward, reforms were implemented that aligned the Anglican Church more closely with Protestant ideas. These reforms were later reversed by Henry's daughter, Mary I, who attempted to restore Catholicism. However, under Elizabeth I, the Church of England established itself as a middle ground between Catholic and Protestant practices, a position that became known as the Elizabethan religious settlement. The English Reformation and the establishment of the Anglican Church would go on to define a new era, shaping England's national identity and leaving a permanent mark on the course of Western history.